Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well this Friday, November 3, 2023. It is with pleasure that I meet with you today to talk about Solana's crypto. So, it caused a lot of talk because we had a big explosion in OCR. It will be a pleasure to come back to this project that I have already presented to you many times. But as usual, we will dissect it into two parts. From the fundamental part, we will explain what Solana is, we will come back to the activities, which there were many of, and then we will project ourselves onto the technical part to see how far back we can trace, until where we can push, and it starts right away. As a reminder, you always have the possibility of having free access to the educational course, which is a 60-hour training course worth €400, which allows you to learn blockchain, crypto, investment, technical analysis, trading, everything to become profitable. Through 130 videos, 400 pages of guides, quizzes to find out where you are in your progress, and all for free. To have access to this lifelong training, simply use the platform of one of our partners. Everything is explained in the comments and descriptions. We will start with the presentation. So Solana is a level 1 blockchain which is monolithic. That means that it does absolutely everything in a unique way. It is not like, for example, Ethereum. We will see Ethereum as layer 1, and then we will have scaling layers such as Polygon. We will really have Solana, which is monolithic, which takes care of everything directly, and which is non-clustered. It's a blockchain that has an enormous production capacity. That is to say, they are capable of producing impressive transactions per second, despite the hardware problems they currently have, and they have transaction costs that are truly minimal. It's not for nothing that Solana is considered to be the number 2 blockchain for NFTs after Ethereum. It's really a blockchain that really has big specificities, despite the fact that during the years 2021 and 2022, there were shutdowns at the Solana level, bugs that were made on the validation nodes in which we had to restart the blockchain. So it took a little while, and that's normal given that it's a different technology and that it's a technology that's evolving, that's beta testing. Because they invented what we call proof of history. That is to say, they have the ability to validate transactions without having to look for all the transactions to be able to validate it. That is to say, we only need 2 days of history to be able to know if the transaction is valid or not. Next, we have a project which is decentralized, so we could say that it is still decentralized in relation to the genesis of the project. We oscillate between 2,000 and 2,500 validators. It really oscillates to know that there is really a high cost in terms of validating Solana. That is to say that in order to have a Solana node, to have a server that is capable of validating transactions, you still have to put a big ticket on the table, and to know that it should be simplified given that we have had news that Amazon has set up the blueprint which makes it possible to deploy a Solana validation server on the fly. This, which is rather positive, despite the fact that it is on Amazon, that is still the notion of centralization of infrastructure players, but we will come to that. At another time, next to Solana, it is an SDK which is relatively complete. An SDK is a development kit. It is really for developers because we do not forget that a blockchain is something that provides tools for developers to build decentralized applications, and we have a lot of development kits, almost all of them. And we didn't have a compatible VM, that is to say that we couldn't port Solidity code, we couldn't port applications that were on Ethereum to Solana. We were forced to go through side chains like Neon, for example. And now that's changing given that they launched Solang, which is the capacity to be able to integrate Solidity into Solana. So Solana is much more than that, because next to it, it's still Saga. Saga is a mobile phone that they launched. So did it work? Absolutely not. But on the other hand, they have developed a mobile stack. So that means code to be able to integrate on mobile. And it is the only one to have done that, at least among the big players, which is rather positive to see. I think that it is not finished. We will have to have other things which will appear, like, for example, why not an OS or an overstack to Android. That could be interesting to see, and we will have to follow. There are lots of things to say because you have to understand that Solana is an ecosystem that developed without being EVM compatible. That means that they were developed at a time when Ethereum was saturated, and many other blockchains attracted Ethereum developers to them because they were EVM compatible. That is to say, they could port their code, their decentralized application, directly to the new blockchain without asking questions. Well, on Anas, that was not the case, and despite that, they managed to build a community which is still very active and which continues to be able to progress, which has really focused at the same time on NFTs, for therefore becoming the second largest blockchain in terms of NFTs, or even sometimes exceeding Ethereum in terms of volume. Besides, they are really specialized because they are in the process of improving the compression of NFTs at the Solana level, so that when you mint a lot of NFTs, the costs are minimal. To give you an idea, minting 1 billion NFTs will only cost $10, something which is really minimal when compared to now. In the current state, it is $253 million. I'm not even talking about Ethereum. It's just totally unaffordable. So we are really using a compression tool to facilitate the mass adoption of the technology, because the more we have these scalability and cost reduction technologies, the more we will have the capacity to be able to evolve Solana. So as I told you, there was the convention which ended, which is called Breakpoint 2023, in which we still had a lot of news. Well, quite a bit. I was still expecting to have more things. So we got two things. One, the fact that it is instantiated directly on Google Query, which is rather positive. And then, the fact that we can build a Solana node directly on Amazon, which is also positive. And the big news for me is the modification of the 3JS Web API, which is in fact the API that allows you to build decentralized applications on Solana. They have greatly improved it, and a priori, there will still be improvements that will arrive. So that means it makes onboarding a lot easier. Precisely from Web 2 developers to Web 3 technologies. Given that the more we have an easy-to-use Web 3 API, the more we will be able to have developers to use them. So at the site level, I'm just going to note something that they modified. They modified the notion of case study in which they presented the different case studies. Therefore, the different projects which are built on Solana, and we still have very large projects like Helium, which was a blockchain in its own right, which was integrated into Solana to offer the 5G network all over the world integrated into Solana. And we are going to have other small projects, notably HiveMaper, which allows to be able to make a decentralized Google map, managed by the community and updated by the community. So we have things that are really very well done. Projects that are built so, once again, I repeat, that Solana is not EVM compatible. Even if Solana is launched. All the projects that are launched now are projects that were developed mainly in Rust, or via an already present stack which was not therefore Solidity, and therefore which was not Ethereum compatible. And that's really important because that's what makes the Solana community close to Solana and remains Solana. She is not going to go on another project because their skills are linked to Solana. And that's really a big advantage. So we're going to tackle the technical part because a lot of things happened and it's going to be interesting to see that. We had the first phase of accumulation which took place here. We have a schematic of 5 Elliotist waves which ended in November 2021 with the establishment of a BCR-ST distribution, which is rather classic, and we are currently in the part of the sign of weakness, in the part of accumulation of Wyckoff, which we find here with behind. The SC, which has been put in place, and here we have had a loss of liquidity which took place. Loss of liquidity which was accentuated here by FTX. FTX, very big here precisely from Solana. And it hurt very, very badly, and in fact it hurt so much that we did not manage to return to the on it before a certain time, despite the acceleration at the start of 2023, where we did it once, twice, 3 times, where we see that we were systematically rejected with even an increase in downward pressure, where we systematically searched below. And precisely these rejection conditions were systematic, and we can clearly see that we really went to look for a retest of the breakout which had been carried out before having a first bullish sign in which we went to look here for this level of FTX, and then to press down and reaccelerate upwards. So what's interesting is that we completely broke the bearish range that we had here to give an acceleration. Acceleration in which we went to retest the upper part here of the AR, South Carolina AR. So here we have a very strong point which was given to Solana's level of her existence. So now we're going to talk about 2 things. Why did it accelerate upwards, and why did it accelerate downwards? It's important to already understand what happened. The upward acceleration is mainly linked to a liquidation cluster which takes place, and then the implementation of the breakpoint announcement. So when we actually have a big convention like that which is taking place, plus a form of FOMO which is arriving, plus an acceleration of BTC. So obviously, we have an overreaction of the market with a very, very strong acceleration. Solana was one of the big players. Big performances, in fact, over the last 2 weeks, so obviously that attracted inflows of liquidity. These influxes of liquidity also led to a very strong short squeeze in which we continually liquidated upwards to reach a maximum which was reached at $46, $47. It's not for nothing that I told you to be careful. Take profits. It will fall quickly. We see that it has already fallen here first part, second part. For what? Because 1, we have already achieved a strong objective, that is to say we retested the AR, so technically we have made our breakout, so we need to breathe. When we see that if we go back to monthly, we had a month which was still relatively strong, we will have to fill part of the imbalance at some point. It's completely logical to do this breathing here to retest key levels such as the $25 or even a little higher. I'm already thinking when we're going to retest the $30 this will be good, and there we will see if we have an accumulation or not. Another thing is that we have profit taking here that has been made. Understand that when you have bought between $8 and $10 and you currently have X4, you have to take profits. This is completely normal. If you don't take a portion of the profit, it's because you don't have good risk management. It's really important. And second thing is that we had news that the FTX Solana were in the process of moving and unstaking, so obviously bearish pressure. Bearish breakout. I announced that to you in particular in the daily, that of yesterday, that of the day before yesterday. So obviously you are aware of this information, and if you have followed in particular, you have made a profit and you are rather well in this area. So, what can we expect next? Already I think that we will necessarily have a continuity of the retracement. I gave you the targets. And then, in the long term, we could look for things a little higher, like for example, Wave 1. Wave 2. So here we would really be at the bottom of Wave 2 to prepare for a big Wave 3. With here, so I don't have on the monthly, we're going to go weekly normally. That's it, we're going to look here potentially between $400 and $450 as a target at the Solana level. Therefore something which is still very efficient in which we still have a good forecast of evolution to potentially obtain another X10 on the current level. On the other hand, this implies that it will have to be here in the implementation of a bull run, at the end of a bull run, with a provision of liquidity and a Solana ecosystem which continues to evolve. We must understand that we must be in this schema to arrive at these key levels, and it will take time. Once again, do not rush. If you followed the build-up here, you've already exposed yourself well. If you are not exposed to Solana, ask yourself, is it worth going back now, knowing that potentially we can trace further down? Don't you want to have a little exposition to cover the notion of FOMO? It is up to you to actually manage your risk management and to manage how you are going to manage your portfolio. I hope you like this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment. It always makes me very happy and it supports the work that I do every day. And we'll see you tomorrow for the weekly at 13:30.